Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me.
The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the grounds of Hogwarts. The iconic towers of the castle rose majestically against the horizon, their stone walls reflecting the deepening hues of orange and gold. Harry Potter, now in his early 20s, stood near the edge of the lake with his two best friends, Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley. It had been years since the end of the war, but the weight of those battles still lingered in subtle ways. They had returned to Hogwarts for an alumni event, a chance to reconnect with their past and celebrate the future of wizardry. But as Harry gazed out at the peaceful waters, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. "Have you noticed anything odd about the sky?" Hermione asked, her brow furrowed. She had always been the first to pick up on subtle changes in the magical world. "I've been reading up on magical disturbances recently, and there's been something unusual reported from the far edges of our maps." "Unusual?" Ron asked, absent-mindedly throwing a rock into the lake. "Like what?" "An island," she said softly, her voice tinged with curiosity and concern. "An island that wasn't there before, and it's not showing up on any of the Hogwarts maps, and none of the ones we've ever seen, at least." Harry turned toward her, interest piqued. "An island appearing out of nowhere? That's never a good sign." Before they could continue their conversation, the heavy wooden doors of Hogwarts creaked open, and Professor McGonagall emerged, her robes billowing in the soft breeze. She approached them with purpose, her stern expression betraying a hint of worry. "Potter, Granger, Weasley," she addressed them. "I'm glad to find you all together. I've been informed of a situation." She hesitated, glancing at the sky as if expecting something ominous to appear. "There's been an anomaly. A magical island has surfaced at the edges of our world, and we've received reports of strange occurrences. This island, it has never appeared on any map, and it's causing quite a stir in the magical community." "An island, Professor?" Hermione asked, her suspicions confirmed. "Yes, it's not just any island. According to legend, it was once home to an ancient wizarding society that vanished without a trace. They were rumored to have left behind vast treasuries and terrible dangers. The ministry has sent a few scouting teams, but none have returned. I won't force you into anything, but I trust that if anyone can handle this, it's you three." Harry exchanged a glance with Hermione and Ron. The lure of the unknown, the thrill of discovery, it was irresistible. And though they had all moved on from the battles of their youth, the call of adventure was still in their blood. "We'll go," Harry said, his voice resolute. The journey to the island began the following morning. The Hogwarts staff had provided them with a small, enchanted boat capable of navigating the treacherous waters that surrounded the island. Hermione had spent the night researching, poring over ancient texts and scrolls in the Hogwarts library. She had uncovered mention of the island in passing, a place shrouded in mystery, feared for its hidden dangers and revered for its long-lost magical knowledge. As the boat moved through the misty waters, the island slowly came into view. Its jagged cliffs rose ominously from the sea, and the dense fog that surrounded it gave it an eerie, otherworldly feel. The air grew colder as they approached, and Harry could sense the ancient magic emanating from the land, like a pulse in the atmosphere. "This place feels wrong," Ron muttered, gripping his wand tightly as they neared the shore. "Why does it always have to be ancient cursed islands?" Hermione, however, was more intrigued than afraid. "There's so much we can learn here," she said, her eyes gleaming with the prospect of uncovering long-lost spells. "If the legends are true, this island could hold knowledge beyond anything we've ever imagined." Harry stepped out of the boat as they reached the shore, his boots sinking into the damp sand. The island was silent, save for the distant sound of crashing waves. Trees with twisted, blackened trunks lined the beach, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The sky above seemed darker here, as if the sun itself was hesitant to shine too brightly upon this forsaken land. "We should stick together," Harry said, his voice low as they began to move inland. "There's something off about this place." As they ventured deeper into the island, the trees grew thicker, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out most of the light. Strange symbols were carved into the bark of the trees, runes that none of them recognized. The air was thick with magic, and every step felt heavier, as if the island itself was watching their every move. "It's like this place is alive," Hermione whispered, her hand brushing against one of the ancient runes. "I've never seen magic like this before." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A low, rumbling noise echoed through the forest, and the earth shifted as if something deep within the island had awakened. The group froze, their wands at the ready. "Did you feel that?" Ron asked, his eyes wide. Before they could respond, the trees around them began to shift. The branches twisted and contorted, reshaping into grotesque forms. The very ground beneath their feet seemed to ripple, and out of the shadows, dark figures emerged, the creatures made of smoke and shadow, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Run!" Harry shouted, but it was too late. The creatures lunged toward them, their movements unnaturally fast. Harry raised his wand, casting a spell to push them back, but the creatures seemed to absorb the magic, growing stronger with each attack. "They're feeding off the spells," Hermione cried, her voice filled with panic. "We need to find a way to stop them." Harry racked his brain, searching for a solution. He remembered something Hermione had said earlier about the island being alive, about the runes carved into the trees. "The runes!" he shouted. "Maybe they're controlling the creatures." Without hesitation, Hermione pointed her wand at one of the runes and muttered an incantation. The rune glowed brightly for a moment before fading, and as it did, the creatures hesitated, their forms flickering. "It's working!" Ron yelled, following suit. One by one, they disabled the runes, and with each rune that faded, the creatures grew weaker until they finally dissolved into nothingness. Breathing heavily, Harry looked around at the now silent forest. "That was close. But it's not over yet," Hermione said, her eyes scanning the dark woods. "This island is full of ancient magic and we've only scratched the surface." As they continued deeper into the island, they came across the ruins of what had once been a grand civilization. Towering stone structures lay crumbled and overgrown with vines, their walls inscribed with the same strange runes they had encountered earlier. In the center of the ruins stood a massive stone door, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "That must be where the treasure is," Ron said, his voice filled with awe. "Or something much worse," Harry added grimly. He could feel the weight of the dark magic pressing down on them, and for the first time since they had arrived, he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. Hermione approached the door, her fingers tracing the patterns. "These are protective wards," she said. "Very old, very powerful. Whoever sealed this door didn't want anyone getting in or anything getting out." "So what do we do?" Ron asked. "We can't just turn back now, can we?" "No," Harry said, stepping forward. "We didn't come all this way just to leave empty-handed." With a deep breath, he raised his wand and pointed it at the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening rumble, the door slowly began to open, revealing a dark passageway that led deep into the earth. Cold air rushed out, carrying with it the scent of ancient dust and something else, something darker. "We go in," Harry said, his voice steady, though inside, his heart pounded with a mix of fear and anticipation. The passageway stretched into the bowels of the island, illuminated only by the soft glow of their wands. The air grew colder, heavier, the deeper they went. It wasn't just the damp chill of stone walls long abandoned, it was something darker, older, like the weight of centuries pressed down upon them. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing off the stone. Harry led the way, his senses on high alert. He could feel the pulse of ancient magic all around them, a force that tugged at the edges of his mind, whispering of power and danger. Behind him, Hermione's breath came in shallow bursts, her fingers tracing the walls as if deciphering the runes etched into the stone. Ron, for once, was uncharacteristically quiet, his eyes darting nervously around, searching for any signs of movement. The path twisted and turned, spiraling deeper until they finally reached a vast underground chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, and the walls were lined with towering statues of cloaked figures, their faces obscured by stone hoods. In the center of the room stood a large stone altar, upon which rested an ancient staff. It was simple in design, yet it radiated a power so immense that even from a distance, they could feel it vibrating in the air. "That's it," Hermione whispered, her voice barely audible. "That's what's been calling us here." But Harry couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The shadows that danced along the edges of the room seemed too alive, too aware. The statues, though still, gave off an unsettling aura, as if they were watching, waiting. "We should be careful," Harry said, moving forward slowly. His eyes flicked over the statues, his grip tightening on his wand. "Something's not right." Hermione nodded, stepping closer to the altar. "This stuff a broken bar. It must have belonged to the wizards who once lived here. It could be the key to controlling whatever dark force is trapped on this island. If we can get it back to Hogwarts, maybe we can learn how to." A loud, echoing crash interrupted her words. The ground beneath them trembled, and cracks splintered across the stone floor, spreading like spider webs. The statues lining the walls began to move, their heads turning slowly toward the group, their stone bodies grinding as they shifted to face them. Ron cursed under his breath. "I knew this place was cursed. I bloody knew it." The statues, now fully animate, stepped down from their pedestals with slow, deliberate movements. Their eyes, if they had any beneath those hoods, burned with an ancient magic. Harry could feel the malevolent energy pulsing from them, the same energy that had been stirring since they first set foot on the island. "They're guardians," Hermione said, backing up. "They must be protecting the staff." "From us?" Ron asked, raising his wand. "We're just trying to leave, for Merlin's sake." But the statues advanced, their movements slow but purposeful, their stone limbs creaking as they closed in around the group. Harry raised his wand, ready to cast a defensive spell, but he hesitated. There was something about these guardians, something that told him brute force wouldn't work. They weren't just magical constructs, they were tied to the island itself, an extension of its will. "Hermione, do you know any way to stop them?" Harry asked, his voice tense as the statues drew closer. "I'm trying to figure that out," she replied, her brow furrowed in concentration as she scanned the runes on the walls. "There must be a way. These kinds of guardians are usually bound by ancient spells or commands. If we can find the right incantation, maybe we can deactivate them." The first of the statues reached out with a massive stone hand, its fingers curling toward Harry. He dodged to the side, casting a shield charm that barely held under the force of the statue's grip. Ron fired a spell at another statue, but the magic seemed to dissipate as soon as it hit the stone. "They're absorbing our magic," Ron shouted, his voice filled with panic. "What do we do?" Hermione said, her eyes lighting up as she spotted something. "Look at the floor." "The runes. They're not just decoration, they're a containment spell. The staff is the key to controlling the guardians." Before Harry could respond, another statue lunged at them, forcing him to roll out of the way. He glanced at the staff on the altar. It was their only chance. But as he moved toward it, a shadow passed over him, cold and suffocating. The room seemed to darken, and from the shadows, a figure began to emerge. It was the same dark force they had felt since they arrived on the island, but now it had a form vaguely human, but twisted, its features indistinguishable beneath a shroud of smoke and darkness. The air around it crackled with dark magic, and Harry could feel the malevolence radiating from it like a storm. "You have come for what is mine," the figure hissed, its voice echoing in the chamber. "But you will leave with nothing." Harry raised his wand, but the dark figure didn't attack. It simply watched, its presence growing stronger, more oppressive. The statues halted their advance, as if awaiting further orders. "You're not the first to seek the power of this island," the figure said, its voice cold and hollow. "But you will be the last." "We don't want your power," Harry said, stepping forward, his wand still raised. "We just want to leave." The figure laughed, a sound that sent chills down Harry's spine. "You cannot leave. Not now. Not after awakening me. The island has chosen you just as it chose the ones before you. And now, it will consume you." Hermione, her eyes still locked on the staff, whispered urgently to Harry. "We need to get the staff, Harry. It's the only way to stop this." Harry nodded, his eyes never leaving the dark figure. He knew that whatever this entity was, it wasn't going to let them go easily. They had disturbed something ancient, something that had been waiting for centuries to be freed. With a burst of determination, Harry darted toward the altar. The dark figure moved, faster than he expected, a wave of dark magic surging toward him. He barely had time to throw up a shield, the force of the magic slamming into him and sending him sprawling backward. "Harry!" Hermione screamed, rushing to his side. Ron was already casting protective spells, but they were barely holding. Harry struggled to his feet, his head spinning. The dark figure was advancing again, its form shifting and twisting like smoke in the wind. He could feel its power closing in on them, suffocating, relentless. "We don't have much time," Hermione said, her voice trembling. "If we don't get that staff, we're finished." Harry gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. The staff, it was their only hope. Summoning all his strength, he raised his wand and aimed at the altar. "Accio staff." The staff quivered for a moment before it shot into his hand, its power humming through his fingers. The moment he touched it, the room seemed to shift, the oppressive darkness receding slightly. The statues froze in place, their eyes dimming, and the dark figure hesitated, as if sensing the change. "You think that will save you?" the figure hissed, its voice filled with venom. "The power of the ancients is not for you to wield." Harry felt the staff's magic course through him, but it wasn't like any wand he had ever used. It was older, wilder, and it responded to him in ways he didn't fully understand. But he didn't have time to question it. He raised the staff, aiming it at the dark figure. "Let us go," he said, his voice steady despite the fear swirling inside him. The figure laughed again, a sound that reverberated through the chamber. "You cannot command what you do not understand." Before Harry could react, the figure surged forward, a torrent of dark magic crashing toward them. But this time, Harry was ready. He raised the staff, and a blinding light exploded from its tip, meeting the dark magic head on. The force of the collision shook the ground, and the dark figure shrieked in pain as the light pierced through it, tearing at its shadowy form. The room was filled with a deafening roar as the dark figure disintegrated, its form unraveling like smoke caught in a gust of wind. The statues, too, began to crumble, their stone bodies collapsing into dust as the ancient magic that had sustained them finally faded. When the light finally dimmed, the chamber was silent. The oppressive magic that had filled the room was gone, and the air felt lighter, freer. Harry, breathing heavily, lowered the staff, his body trembling from the effort. Hermione and Ron rushed to his side, their faces pale but relieved. "You did it," Hermione said, her voice filled with awe. "You stopped it." Harry nodded, though he could hardly believe it himself. The island's dark force was gone, but the staff still pulsed in his hand, its ancient magic waiting, watching. They had survived, but Harry knew this place held more secrets, more power than they could ever fully understand. "I think it's time we go home," he said quietly, and together, they turned their backs on the island, leaving its ancient magic behind them.